Today I wanted to talk to you about how you define your target market. And I wanted to do that because I see a lot of people struggling with it. So a few days ago, I met with a client and I said something like, who do you serve? Who's your audience? And she kind of, she'd been just talking casually. We'd been chatting with each other. And all of a sudden she went into this like formal mode and she said, I help 50 plus women, da, 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 something like that. It was a formula that she had learned and it just sounded so stilted and it was unnecessarily restrictive actually. And so everybody keeps on saying, narrow your niche, narrow your niche. But I think sometimes people do it in an artificial way that just cuts out potential clients. So the first thing I want to talk about is that age, women 50 and over, because I see that one a lot for some reason. And having an exact age like that is just, I just don't think it makes any sense whatsoever. So, you're helping women, you're thinking 50 plus and you're helping them, maybe with a career change or getting out of their job, or you're helping them with digestive problems or like whatever it might be. What if they're 49? It's almost as if you're thinking about Facebook ads and, you're specifying in the ad who your audience is and you're saying 50 above, because you have to put in the number. But when you talk to people, that it doesn't make a whole lot of sense and people don't even like hearing it, to tell you the truth. And so I think what you really need to do is think in more generic terms. So for example, I like the term midlife, like midlife women. So I have a client who helps midlife women with menopause issues or digestive issues, or it could be, with career issues, at that certain age where you're not sure if you could really start something completely new, and what are you going to be doing. So midlife kind of says, you're not young anymore, you're not old anymore, but there are these midlife issues that kind of come up, and it's just, all of the people in your target market will recognize midlife, and nobody's going to feel like, oh my God, like, oh, I'm 50 now, oh, what if I'm 49? Anyway. So having a specific age is really useful. Now, if you're helping people with retirement, even so, because some people want to retire at 50 or 60, or other people aren't going to retire until 80. So you might want to say, I help people prepare for retirement, and I help them, something like that, or I help them make the right retirement choices, or I help new retirees build a wonderful life for themselves, something like that. You just don't need the age there, and it's kind of artificial. Now, men and women, I see that a lot. Being a woman, I seem to attract women, and some of them want to work only with women. So fine, if you only want to work with women, then you should say it, of course. But if that's not the issue, then you don't have to mention it, and maybe some men will come along. So another time when you do need to be very specific is if you are doing local services and you live in a certain area. So if you teach yoga and you want to do it in person and you happen to live in Kalamazoo, Michigan, then you need to say that, obviously. I don't deal with a lot of people like that because I focus on people who have online businesses and who are doing business everywhere. But if your business is local, then that's something that you should mention. So a great way to delineate your target market is to say what they do. So if you help coaches and consultants, saying that is really helpful. So I sometimes people will say like service-based businesses, and I just find that really obscure. It's like, do I have a service-based business or not? What do you mean by that? It could mean almost anything. And a lot of people have both. So for example, I do coaching, but I also have products. I sell products. So I'm both a service and a product based company. So, are you talking to me? So I think it really helps more to talk about, who you're serving and what their job is, what their field is, what they're doing. So maybe you're helping new online entrepreneurs. So that's one of my target markets. And so, just say that, new online entrepreneurs, and people who are new will get it. They'll say, oh yeah, that's for me. I want for new. Or you might have the opposite thing. You might want to say, and this is also pretty common, I help online entrepreneurs who are making six figures and want to get to that seven-figure mark, that kind of thing. Or I help online entrepreneurs who are making five figures get to six figures. So however you want to define it, don't cut it down, more than you have to. I like to say psychographics rather than demographics. So again, if you only want to work with women, that's a demographic, fine. But like in terms of age, again, just being a little bit more general. And when you say midlife, it's a little bit more of a psychographic. I am in the middle of my life. It's not so much what my age is. It's more like where my psychology is because of my lifespan. So I think every time you do that, you get better results. So again, I mentioned this example of beginners, but it's a general principle about where they are in their journey of wherever they want to go. So are they beginners? Are they do they want to move up? Are they maybe doing really well, but you want to help them not have to work so hard? So, I help successful online entrepreneurs, maybe you want to say making six figures if that's how you want to limit it, but I wouldn't do that personally. But I help successful online entrepreneurs who've gotten there through really hard work, and now they want to step back and organize and delegate and not have to work so hard. So that would be something that would impact people, and people would say, yes, that's me, that kind of thing. So you want to have a specific problem that you solve. Now, the thing about the problem is that very often people think of the problem in terms of the solution, it sounds stupid, but it's really common. So, for example, if you help people with digestive problems, okay, but you think that basically, you're dealing with people who have the whole biome, it's called. Yeah, that's the word. So like they, like a leaky gut, or their biome, or they need probiotics or prebiotics, whatever those things are, that kind of thing. The problem with talking about that is people don't know that that's their problem. They don't know that their problem is, let's say, a leaky gut. So what they know is that they might feel have digestive pain, or maybe they have diarrhea, or whatever it is. They know they have some kind of digestive problem, but they don't know what's causing it, and they don't know what the solution is. So you can't talk about it in terms of the specifics of what you do. You have to just do it in terms of the problem, how they perceive it. I'll give you another example, again from one of my clients. So she had this worksheet that helped people make ethical decisions. And she was trying to promote it. And I said, well, what is their problem? And she said, their problem is they don't have a system to make ethical decisions. And I said to her, but they don't know that. That's not how they're thinking about it. They're thinking about it like, why do I always hook up with the wrong people? Or why do I, by that, relationship kind of thing? Or why do I always end up being betrayed by my friends? Or why do I always, something like that. They're making decisions but they don't realize that that's what the problem is. They're seeing it in terms of relationships, or they're seeing it in terms of, maybe lack of success in their business, they're something like that. So you have to always put it in terms of the problem as they see it, not as the problem that you see it. And so that's how you define your target market. It's, people who are feeling uncomfortable in their digestion, or people who are feeling like they can never have a good relationship, that kind of thing. And so again, you just have to put yourself in their shoes. And a good way to do this is to test it, is to ask people. So first of all, take clients that you've already had and ask them how they thought about their problem. And then go out there and say, ask certain questions and see what kind of responses that you get. But just putting yourself in their shoes. So I guess just to summarize, okay, I have my notes here. Don't be so specific in terms of demographics. Focus a little bit more on psychographics, on how they're feeling, how they're thinking, that kind of thing. If you want to go by age, do more. You could use Gen X or Gen Y, you could do something like that, but just a little bit as generic as possible to do that. Personally, I don't even know the difference between Gen X and Gen Y, and I know I'm a boomer, and I don't know all the other ones. So I find those terms confusing, and that's another point, is to not use words that not everybody knows, kind of jargon or terms that people in your field know, but that your target market might not know. Focus on what they do if you're helping people with their career. Focus on where they are in their journey, whether they're beginners or they're moving up or they're already experts, that kind of thing. What their problem is in their terms. Okay, let me know if you have any questions about this, and I think it'll help you reach more people, because it'll help you define what you do in terms that people will resonate with. Bye-bye.